Alright, welcome back, Mech Warriors. So next step we're doing is an oil wash step. So the idea behind oil washing is to preserve the color and the work that we've done previously by using a paint, a kind of paint that we can apply on the model, either a pin wash or an all-over wash. You can slather it on if you want to, and we'll have a lot of control, great control in pulling it off and keeping it keeping things clean. So after acrylics have cured and hardened, and especially after a varnish coat, when we put the oil paint mixture on, it's not going to interact or destroy or wreck or anything like that the acrylic paints that are already cured in place. So it's kind of like we're operating on like a fresh, like an action figure almost, to be honest. We can apply the paint in whatever viscosity or amount we want to, and then we can pull it off using mineral spirits. We're using something akin to a mineral spirit. I'm using just kind of like an ink thinner. I get it if you go to your local hobby store or art store, just ask for, say you're using oil paints and you're looking for a thinner, and then you can mix it with the paint to have it create the wash, or you can use it straight by itself, clean, and use it as a cleaning agent to remove the wash. So I have two things here that I sometimes use. Matte Effect thinner from Davion. Just leaves sometimes you'll get quite a shiny finish in the recesses. I believe it's because of the linseed oil that is used as like a carrier for the pigment. And then there's AK Interactive White Spirit. So you can use this. I use this generally more for their streaking grimes and their dark washes, their enamel stuff. I have an old airbrush bottle. I've got a bunch of, it's like a 2-liter jug. The cleaning solution comes from the art store. So I've got a little palette here. We've got a couple old brushes. One kind of pointy, and one's more of an application one, the blue, and a mixing one, the black. And then I've got just a black oil color paint here. So this is from Davion. I believe these are made for miniature modeling or scale modeling. So I like them a lot more than using just the straight Winsor Newton ones or the other kind of brands from the art store. I do have quite a few of these. I've got maybe 30 or 35 oil paints, various colors and tones, and I do mix them quite a bit. So if I don't have a color exactly what I'm wanting, I'll just mix them together. For my Lyran Guard that I do, I'll generally mix something like a black and a turquoise together, and that'll give me a darker shade than what the blue armor paneling is, so it'll act as a nice shadow, but it's not just straight black. Today we're going to be using just straight black because we have a lot of colors across the model, and I think black will look fine. So what I generally do is I do two wells for kind of cleaning my brushes out, and it's just my little my little tin here, or my plastic tray is stained quite badly just because I didn't clean out some of the oil paints previously super well. So that's why they're all discolored and whatnot. This doesn't affect, they're not going to pull up or reactivate or anything like that. So I've got a clean well here of the cleaning agent or the thinner. Same thing here. I generally just keep two because one's going to get murky as I go, and then I'll have a clean one if I need an absolutely clean one. And then this one here is where we'll probably mix our black. I'm just going to pull out a little bit. I always like to mix it a little bit thicker, and then I can add thinner in as I need to thin it down. So there's no magical amount ratio. The thicker you mix it, the more opaque it's going to be. So the less it's going to travel. You'll see what I mean by travel when we start painting, but when we touch the model, it's going to seek out the crevices, kind of like a panel liner. And it's going to shoot through the model. I'm actually going to get one more folded piece of paper towel, just because I don't want it all over my counter. And I'll use this to kind of wick off our excess on. There we go. Like so. So it comes out like a toothpaste. So I just I make sure my brush is wet first, take a little bit. Water is not involved anywhere in this process. It's just a cleaning agent and then the paint. Okay, so I'm gonna mix this in this dish over here. So the thicker you mix it, the darker and more opaque the paint will be in the recesses, but it will travel less distance. The thinner you make it, it's going to bleed out and travel farther, but it might dry and not have fully opaqueness in the crevices. So it really depends what you're trying to do. If you're trying to kind of lightly tint a surface, you could go thin. But if you're trying to have hard defining lines between plates or between things, if you have, say, like have a silver engine compartment on a larger model, and you kind of matte varnish it or semi-gloss varnish it, or like a satin finish, you can put an oil wash in it, and it'll seek out and kind of jump into all those little pock marks and craters that are in the matte varnish, giving kind of like a sooty, stained appearance to your to your engine. So I'm just checking the consistency. So I've pulled up a kind of a half load on my brush here. I'm just dragging along the paper towel. This looks pretty good. Let's just make one over here, a thinner one, so you guys can take a look and see what that looks like. So this is quite thin. This is a lot of the thinner and a tiny bit of paint in here. I know it looks dark, but it's quite thin in comparison. So if I touch it like that, you'll see that it bleeds out. Oh, a fair bit more. Actually, yeah, this paint's just quite potent stuff. So if you had it mixed out something like that and you drug it out, it's just a little bit thinner. This one's definitely, I'd say this is the darkest. This one bled a bit more, but kept the same color definition. This one here is getting a little bit ghosty. Doesn't look like it as much on camera, but it's more of like a gray than a black. So I'm just gonna clean out my brush because I've got it mixed up to the opacity that I want. Set that one off to the side. All right, so we got this guy. So he does have a layer of varnish on him. The other thing you do need is Q-tips or sponges. We'll get to that in the next segment, but make sure you have those before you start. You can leave this paint on for a while. I wouldn't leave it on for maybe like 24 hours, but you could leave it for a couple hours and easily come back and reactivate and agitate and pull it off. Actually, I'm going to pull the tray up here a little. We know what's going on the tray, and let's get a better look at the model. Okay, so I'm going to hold it up here. I'm going to be just touching panels. So if I touch, let's go for this part in the leg here. If I just touch it, the kind of capillary action of the black paint, see how it kind of just runs into the crevice? And it kind of just bleeds out across the model. So it'll kind of search out any indent, any low spot, and it'll fill it. I'm gonna try to be a little bit careful here. I could just put it on the thick brush and just slather it all down the leg here, and we'd easily be able to remove all of it without damaging any of the colors or decals or work that we've done previously. I just prefer to be a little more careful. And then as we're going afterwards, we can remove as much or as little as we want to. So if we want to keep, some darker saturated areas in the crevices, we totally can. I would say generally pick something like a leg, do all the sides of it, and then work your way up the body. Just so you know that you don't miss any parts. If my paint's feeling a little bit thick, I'll just grab a little bit of thinner out of the dirty thinner. This one here, the dirty thinner well, mix it in with my next brush load. So again, let's check it out in the back panels here. So I'm going to just touch up here. We'll touch down here. You see how it kind of just like seeps out and then defines all the areas around it. So again, this is another reason why we didn't have to worry too much about the silvers before. We're going to get a lot of darkening happening in the metallics. So we were able to over highlight a little bit with the actual like silver or the iron color that we were using, as opposed to having to do a black metallic and then being very, very careful and fine with our highlights. So I really enjoy using oil washes on any kind of like bright, colorful scheme. If I'm doing something like a camouflage, camo pattern, I'll generally probably use the enamels, the AK Interactive kind of streaking grime-esque models. I don't use a lot of streaking grime itself, but a lot of their washes, they have kind of keyed into certain colors where they work really well for greens or browns or yellows or beiges. So even along the panel outline, or the canopy outline there too. So this will darken the model down significantly. I've been looking at pictures the last couple of days of our kind of each step, just double checking, seeing what it looks like through my camera. And it was looking quite bright. And this will really help to darken it down. We will end up leaving probably a fair amount of dark in the recesses of the shoulders, like the actuators and the hips and stuff like that. Let's try and get a sort of better view. Yeah, so it does come off pretty shiny. It's just because it's wet. It'll take a little longer to dry than acrylics for sure. You're probably looking at a couple low hours, I would say. If you're using kind of the matte dry or the specially formulated things to dry faster, maybe like 30-40 minutes, you'd be probably okay to varnish and work on. But if it's straight oil paints from like the art store with like a lot of linseed oil in it, it takes a lot longer to dry or to set, and you're looking at probably hours or even 24, 48 hours in some cases, depending on how thick you put it on. You can start to remove it anytime with the Q-tips and the spirits, but I tend to wait till it starts to set a little bit. That way we're not worrying about it like reactivating and pooling down in the crevices and losing a lot of what we've done. If we wait till it kind of sets and stays in place a little bit, then when we're reactivating with a damp Q-tip with mineral spirits on it, let's go right over the panel there. So we're reactivating with a damp Q-tip, then it'll pull off a lot less, or it'll reactivate and agitate a lot less of the model. And it works excellent on the metal components. If you're doing like an engine or something, just do a couple silver and maybe a highlight, and then you really don't even have to do any shades. You can just go right to a black oil wash if you want to, and it'll really make it pop and stand out. Yeah, that's looking nice. It's going to try and do a bit more on the canopy here, just to make sure we have it in the kind of rims and edges. Okay, I'm just going to do kind of a once around profile twist here, make sure I've got everything. It's a little bit hard to tell just because there's still a fair amount of dark blue in the deep recesses, so just making sure anything that I think people's eyes are going to catch on, I've definitely double checked and covered. You throw a little bit in your barrels if you want to. We've got our heat scorching to the end, and then we can put some black oil wash in the end to finalize it as a nice dark end piece. You can always add more later if you find you've missed a spot, but I like to be just thorough and just kind of enjoy the process. But I think that looks good. As far as I can see, we've got all of our parts covered. Our crevices done. Yeah, it looks nice. It's really darkened it down. Looks a lot better. That's one part of a lot of times I'll do work in progress pictures, and someone will say like, oh, it looks like the colors are nice, but it's like really bright and clean looking. And then once you get to the kind of washing and weathering steps, it really starts to darken it down and make it look more like a higher level of contrast. So we will let that kind of set and dry, and then we will come back and remove a fair amount of the black from the top exposed panels. But yeah, as you can see, it really kicks it up a notch. I really do love oil washing. If I'm doing a colored, something bright and vibrant, like a sort of light or light blues or something like that, I won't pick black like I said. I'll pick a different color. Just a darker shade of whatever I'm working with.